Okay, friends, welcome to the session now. Today we will be continuing the discussion on cell adaptations. In the previous part, we have taken the hypertrophy and atrophy. Continuing that discussion on cell adaptations, let us begin. Okay, so last time we read that atrophy and hypertrophy, and we said, there can be physiological hypertrophy. There can be during the exercise, during any strenuous skeletal muscle, exercise, you can have physiological hypertrophy. And we also said that there is increase in the number of cytoplasm, there is increase in the amount of cytoplasm, sorry, and there is increase in the number of cytoplasmic organelles, DNAs, and increased expression of the sarcomere that is leading to the hypertrophy. Now, what about hyperplasia then? Okay, let us take hyperplasia. Hyperplasia means literally hyper and plasia, plasticity, that is number of cells. So if you are increasing, one component you lag behind while explaining the definition of hyperplasia is you don't speak in detail whether hyperplasia is normal or abnormal. If hyperplasia is happening, what will be the main factor which will tell that hyperplasia is happening? If you are having an increase in the number of normal cells, if you are having an increase in the number of normal cells, we say it is hyperplasia. Okay, so increased number normal cells. This is the thing you have to remember. If you are increasing the number of normal cells, it's called hyperplasia. Can be due to many causes, can be due to any chemical exposure, can be due to any chronic irritation, can be due to it can be physiological hyperplasia also in presence of estrogen till some moment, so that the thing is not going into metaplasia or into endometrial carcinoma. So or also in the electrolyte abnormalities like in hypocalcemia, isn't it, there is a compensatory hyperplasia of the parathyroid gland that is called secondary hyperparathyroidism. So I will be telling you that. So I'm just giving you a overview of what we are going to learn in this. So see, basically the concept of hyperplasia is, once you talk about hyperplasia, you don't talk about the cell abilities. You forget to discuss about the cell abilities, you forget to discuss about the cell capacities, whether a cell is able to divide or not. So before studying that concept of hyperplasia, you should remember which type of cell can undergo which type of hyperplasia or cannot go hyperplasia. So basically, if you go into the basics of cell biology, if you go into the basics of cell biology, in the cell biology, you have a concept that is stem cells. You have a concept that is non-replicating cells. You have a concept that is resting cells. So let me write for you. So you have a concept that you have non-replicating cells. Non-replicating cells. You have a concept that is resting cells. You have another concept that is stem cells. So what is meaning of this? Non-replicating resting cells, stem cells. Let me take stem cells first. Okay, this is also known as labile cells. Labile means continuously dividing. These are those cells which are continuously dividing, like your cells in the bone marrow, producing all the colonies of the cells, like your basal cell of epidermis, isn't it? Your basal cell of epidermis, bone marrow, or you can also take in the GIT that scripts of Liberquin. So these are the cells which are dividing continuously. And once you put any sort of stress, any sort of cell injury, these cells will undergo hyperplasia. Remember, they will undergo hyperplasia. Okay, okay, understood. this concept? So once you put any sort of a stress on it, any cell injury, this will cause hyperplasia. This is done. So labile cells undergo continuous division. Now, what is this resting cell? Rest means I am stable. These are also called stable cells. These are also called stable cells. Now, stable cells won't divide same like a labile cell. Not so much commonly, not so much frequently. Why, sir? Because they are in the resting phase of cell cycle. They are in the resting phase of cell cycle. That resting phase of cell cycle is called G0 phase. So G0 phase of cell cycle, they are present in that phase. Okay. So like you have, if I take the CNS, I have astrocytes. So astrocytes are stable cells. My what example can I give? Hepatocytes. Hepatocytes are stable cells. Smooth muscle cells, stable cells. There are so many examples. So if you want, that means if I have go Sally go make children, if I have the cell cycle go Sally go make children, that means I should provide this G0, I should provide this G0 a growth factor or a stimulus so that this cell can land into what? It can land into the it can undergo division. So to make these cells undergo cell division, you have to stimulate them. By giving anything, you can give them any sort of a growth factor. A hormone can act as a growth factor, or you can bring, you can stop them under a continuous stimulation of any inhibitory hormone. That can be an example also. So these are the things you have to remember. The stable cells I have to give, and stable cells may undergo hyperplasia, may not undergo hyperplasia. They may undergo hypertrophy also. So it will now depend on the type of the cell, whether it's a hepatocyte, whether it is a smooth muscle cell. All of them are stable cells, but depending on the cell types, you will be having variety of adaptations. So depending on cell type, you will have variety of adaptations. Like it can either be hyperplasia or it can be hypertrophy. While as the same is not holding true for permanent cells, that is non-replicating cells. These are permanent. In the permanent cells, they are like like we are postgraduate in medicine, postgraduate in surgery, postgraduate in orthopedics, postgraduate in pediatrics. Same goes for permanent cells. They are specializations. They have specializations. They are specialized cells, and you can't make them replicate. You can't make them replicate. First comes into your brain, neuron. Second mesenchymal cell comes into your brain, that is skeletal muscle cell. Third mesenchymal cell comes into your brain, that's smooth muscle cell. But I will tell you one thing. Does it mean that I have to keep them restricted to hyperplasia only? Aren't they going and undergoing any sort of an adaptation? Yes, sir. We have yesterday seen in the last video that hypertrophy is happening in the cardiac muscle. But here, sir, you are telling that they are not undergoing any replication. I am talking about replication. I am not talking about the adaptation. Replication, I'm not talking about hypertrophy. Hypertrophy will happen in them. But hyperplasia, that is increase in the number of cells, will not happen in them. That is the basic beautiful concept. Are we able to understand? So permanent cells will have skeletal muscles. Sorry, I have a mistake here. Sorry, a typical mistake. This is a cardiac muscle. Sorry, not smooth muscle. So cardiac muscle will be having this. Okay. So hypertrophy will happen. Hypertrophy will happen, but hyperplasia will not happen. Hyperplasia will not happen. Hyperplasia will not happen in these once you are giving them any sort of a cell injury. Are we able to understand? Okay, is it clear? So now if I was talking about this hormone stimulation. So this hormone stimulation, I am saying, for example, we have seen, let me give an example. If I have endometrial hyperplasia, in the endometrial hyperplasia is seen with the increased amount of estrogen. Once you have more amount of estrogen, you will lead to more proliferative capacity of the endometrium, finally giving us an endometrial hyperplasia. This was for female. Going to the male, male has prostate. Now prostate, you know, it is being acted upon by the active form of testosterone, that is dihydroxytestosterone. Because testosterone is getting converted to dihydroxytestosterone under the enzyme dash alpha reductase. What number? Dash alpha reductase. Dash alpha reductase. Yes, Saud will tell me what reductase. Yes, my dears. Yeah, please answer. 5 alpha reductase, my dear. 5 alpha reductase. It's so simple. It's such a basic concept that every medical doctor knows. We know from that no testosterone that we are producing what? We are first having a cholesterol molecule, isn't it? We are having a cholesterol molecule. That cholesterol molecule is giving me pregnenolone. Pregnenolone. This pregnenolone will form DHEA, isn't it? That DHEA will get formed into androstenedione. Androstenedione. And if you give it a 3 beta HSD, if you give it 3 beta HSD enzyme, you will form what? Androstenedione. You can same way change this pregnenolone into progesterone by giving 3 beta HSD. So 3 beta HSD will convert this into progesterone. Progesterone can also itself convert it into what? Androstenedione. Do you remember that cycle? Let me make it for you. Cholesterol is forming what? Pregnenolone. Pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is forming what? DHEA. Now this DHEA can form what? Androstenedione. Androstenedione. Androstenedione can be itself made from what? Progesterone. It can be made from progesterone. That progesterone is made from what? 3 beta HSD by what? Pregnenolone. You can take pregnenolone from this area. And then this androstenedione under the what number? 17B, I think, isn't it? 17B, isn't it? 17 beta HSD converts into what? Testosterone. Testosterone. Now this testosterone under the enzyme 5 alpha reductase will form what? Dihydroxytestosterone. And this testosterone under aromatase, will form estradiol. That is E2 variety. Not going into the biochemistry, just giving you a correlation that this part I am talking right now. The testosterone is getting converted to DHT, that is 5 by the enzyme 5 alpha reductase. And this is the 5 alpha reductase which you are inhibiting in the case of benign prostate hyperplasia or in the prostate carcinoma. No, if you have a higher increase in the size of the prostate, because you know, if this is the bladder, and this is the prostate around it, for example. So if you have a BPH means benign prostate hyperplasia, so that will start narrowing this. That will start narrowing the luminal side of the luminal side of what? What is this? If this is bladder, this is urethra, isn't it? So this is prostatic urethra. So prostatic urethra will have a narrow passage. So I, as a doctor, what do? Is I give a 5 alpha reductase inhibitor, that is finasteride, dutasteride. What beautiful medical science it is. I love it. Finasteride and dutasteride, they will inhibit. They are 5 alpha reductase inhibitors. So once you are inhibiting this 5-alpha reductase, that means testosterone will not be converted into active form of what? DHT. That means this DHT can't produce growth factor on this BPH. That means you won't be able to increase the size of this. That is what you need. So ideally, what was happening, BPH was happening because of 5-HT. Because once you give 5-HT, that is the active form of the testosterone, and that will start making more what? Prostate will increase in size. That is a growth factor for prostate. Like you are eating food for yourself, you will be like the same way giving food to the prostate. Once you give 5-HT, that will stimulate what? Prostate. Now you don't want the lumen to get narrow because patient is coming to you with bladelet out BBOO, bladelet outlet obstruction. He is coming to you with BOO symptoms. He is coming to you with lower urinary tract symptoms also. So what you LUTS we call that. So he's coming to you with this. So what you will do? You have to let him nicely pass the urine because he's not able to pass the. So while you are giving this 5-hydroxy testosterone, you are once you are giving this 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, that is finasteride, dutasteride, you are inhibiting the production of, you are decreasing the production of the active form of testosterone, that is the dihydroxy testosterone. Once you have less levels of dihydroxy testosterone, you will not be able to make the benign prostate hyperplasia to grow further, and the patient will relieve. This will get a little bit of, now urine can pass. This uropathy is treating. This BO, bladder outlet symptoms, can be now treated. So in the benign prostate hyperplasia, the thing is, see, in endometrial gland hyperplasia, there is a difference between the two. See, in endometrial gland hyperplasia, and endometrial hyperplasia will have a high risk of developing what? Endometrial carcinoma. Endometrial hyperplasia will have an increased risk. It can develop, it can progress into endometrial carcinoma. But the same does not hold true for the benign prostate hyperplasia. Benign is a benign variety, and it's the the increase in the number of the cells in the prostatic, and there is no such risk of developing that sort of a prostatic carcinoma if you are having a benign prostate hyperplasia. Okay, so remember, in benign prostate hyperplasia, you will have hyperplasia plus hypertrophy. You will have hyperplasia plus hypertrophy. Okay, so the bladder wall smooth muscles will be blocking this. Okay, smooth muscles of the bladder will be blocking this, and they are showing the features of hyperplasia as well as hypertrophy. Okay, now I will tell you, we have a condition in which we are having local hyperplasia of the in the skin, isn't it? Can you give me an example? That's eczema. Eczema. Let me say like this. In the eczema, you are having a thickened skin. There is a thickening. What happens when you are doing, this is your skin surface. This is a skin surface, and this is the epidermis from this side. So in the epidermis, you are constantly scratching and scratching and scratching, constantly, continuously you are scratching. There is a itchiness in your skin. For example, any itching in the skin and you are constantly itching, what will happen? You will have local hyperplasia of this area of epidermis. This thickened area is called eczema. Okay. Or if I go into the liver, in the liver you have what? Regenerative nodules. Regenerative nodules in the liver. Regenerative nodules in the liver, what will happen? They are happening in what? In the cirrhosis of liver. Once an alcoholic is taking more alcohol, what will happen? These regenerative nodules will increase. These regenerative nodules will increase because they are regenerating. The liver is having cirrhosis, and in response to this, there are some regenerative nodules. So if you are excessively consuming alcohol, then there will be these formation of those regenerative nodules. Okay. Same goes for the people with smoking. They will have mucus gland hyperplasias. Okay. The people with smoking, they will have mucus gland hyperplasia. Mucus gland hyperplasia, no, in the bronchus. In the bronchus. Okay. Now, a clinical condition in which I am appreciating what I am seeing, I can say a goiter. Let me take an example of goiter. What happens in goiter is I have what I know from the basics. I have iodine deficiency, not iron. I have iodine deficiency. I have iodine deficiency, and iodine deficiency will what do? It will tell the thyroid to produce more thyroid hormone, and we have read in the iodinification reaction, in the organification, we have learned in the thyroid organification. It's only after the organification that I'm able to produce that product of the thyroid, isn't it? I have taught you in thyroid pharmacology, anti-thyroid drugs. I have taught you drugs used in thyroid. So this will finally produce a thyroid enlargement. There will be a thyroid enlargement. You should typically use these words only, okay? You will have a thyroid enlargement, okay? Because the thyroid gland has to work more. That means it has to produce for what it is working. It is working to produce more thyroid hormone. So this is your thyroid gland, for example, in the neck, and that it is producing what? It has to work more. So for working more, or if you want to produce more products, you will increase the number of workers in your factory. You will increase the number of workers in your factory. So you will increase the number of cells in the factory. So there will be both. You have to remember, goiter is an example of both hypertrophy as well as hyperplasia. Hypertrophy as well as hyperplasia. Hypertrophy as well as hyperplasia. Or I can take an example of secondary hyperparathyroidism. In secondary hyperparathyroidism, what is happening? What happens? It's a secondary. That means something should be in the calcium. So if I have a decreased calcium, serum calcium, that is hypocalcemia, it will tell the thyroid gland to produce more what? What it will tell to produce? Parathyroid hormone. So that I can reset the calcium levels. I can reset the calcium levels. So in that case, you will have a parathyroid gland hyperplasia. So see, you have two examples for hyperplasia. How I remember is thyroid in the hair, parathyroid in the hair, both are in the neck region. So you will have thyroid, parathyroid, hyperplasia, hypertrophy. Okay. But you don't have to remember hyperplasia, hypertrophy. Hyperplasia for parathyroid hormone, hyperplasia and hypertrophy for thyroid gland. Okay. Are we able to understand? We have given you pretty much an overview of every system where hyperplasia and hypertrophy can happen. Okay. Or even in the thyroid, anti-thyroid antibody, that is TSAs. What is TSA? What is TSA? Thyroid stimulating antibodies, a disease known as Graves' disease. Graves' disease is characterized by what? It's a hyperthyroidism state. It's a state of hyperthyroidism in which any antibody is directly going through an IgG antibody in the Graves' disease. An IgG antibody, which type of IgG? TSA IgG antibody. This TSA antibody will go to the thyroid hormone receptors. This you have to remember. Thyroid hormone receptors. And once it goes to the thyroid hormone receptors in the thyroid gland, it will tell the thyroid gland to produce more thyroid hormone. That means the thyroid gland has to work more to produce the thyroid hormone. That means the thyroid gland has to undergo hyperplasia to increase the number of workers. Are we able to understand? So these TSA antibodies, that is thyroid stimulating antibodies, go towards the thyroid. This is the thyroid gland, and it has a receptor, that is thyroid receptor, and it activates. It is looking same like as if it is a thyroid stimulating hormone. A thyroid stimulating hormone is coming from the pituitary, but these antibodies are behaving like thyroid stimulating hormone. They are behaving like thyroid stimulating hormone. Or in another way, I can make you understand by telling that if I have a shape of this, okay, or if I have a shape of a benzene. Now, if I have a shape, let me make like this. If I have a shape which is circular, now think, this is a big circle and this is same like a big circle, but it also has a rounded surface. So what is happening? This is a thyroid gland. This thyroid gland is having a pit. Think like this. This is the receptor. This is a normal TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and this is a thyroid stimulating antibody. Which two of the three can fit on the thyroid gland? A, B, or C? Which two? You have to tell me two. Which two can fit on this thyroid gland? Which two can fit on this thyroid gland? Beautiful answer. So BC can fit on thyroid gland. So that means if I have a shape, see, if I have a shape like this, that means this is why I am saying this, because that is same is happening, that TSA is behaving as a thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay. Another example I can give. What examples can I think? Okay, let us write like this. Let us write like this. So let me tell you first the examples of physiological hyperplasia. In physiological hyperplasia, I have to say physiology. That means it should regress also with time. It should be for some amount of time. For example, in case of hemolytic anemia. In the hemolytic anemia, I have bone marrow hyperplasia. Okay. Now, in a pregnant uterus, I told you last time also in the hypertrophy that in pregnant uterus there is both hypertrophy plus hyperplasia. There is hypertrophy plus hyperplasia. Breast, pregnant breast. This was about pregnant uterus. Pregnant breast, hypertrophy, same hyperplasia. Is it clear? So I have given you the examples of physiological hyperplasia, which are normally happening as a part of the physiology of human. And this was about the secondary hyperparathyroidism, Graves' disease. Okay, so these antibodies are pathological. Next, we move to the discussion of. Next, let us take the next discussion, that is metaplasia. Okay, let us take the discussion to metaplasia. Metaplasia means if you are, remember this concept, one fully differentiated cell getting converted to or replaced by another fully differentiated cell. Okay. First, you have to remember the definition. I have seen questions coming on metaplasia. So metaplasia, what will happen? Sir, same thing. It is a cellular adaptation. Yes, it will be changing itself under a stress. You are giving it a stress. Okay. So why is this happening? Why is this changing itself? Sir, simple. This person loud air. This person loud air. Okay, this is a person and he is loving air. But he goes to a place where there is so much congestion or there is less oxygen, and he will take an oxygen mask from him because he loves to be, he loves to be in that environment. He will put an oxygen mask. Okay, so same. A cell was having an environment. Our cell was residing in a place. Say, for example, this is the esophagus. Now, esophagus does not know what is acid. Do they know what is acid? Are they introduced to acid? My dear, are esophagus cells introduced to acid? No. But stomach cells, they have what? They know every time. Since you were born, you had acid in it. Okay. Now what will happen? I will give you an example. A case of what case is coming in your brain? Two famous cases about metaplasia, at least. Two at least. Yes. Barrett's. What? Barrett's. That is called, let me tell you like this. Let me start from the above. Why I start directly to the GIT? I should go directly to from the upper regions. Let me go to the lungs. What is the example of metaplasia in lungs? In lungs, for example, best smoking. Best smoking is not best. I am telling best example is smoking. I can give smoking. What will smoking do? Normally, your lining of the epithelium of your upper respiratory tract is what? Pseudostratified, ciliated, columnar epithelium. Once you are smoking, okay, let us make a cigarette. Once you are smoking, what will happen? This smoking will irritate these cells. This will irritate these cells, isn't it? When they undergo irritation, what will happen? I'm taking an example. Okay. What will happen? They will be having what? They will change themselves. They will adapt. They will let this smoke to pass through them. So what will happen? They will change themselves to squamous epithelium. That's why we call it epithelial metaplasia. So this example is giving us a conclusion that I was fully differentiated. I did not went to the stem cell. I am fully differentiated. I am a fully differentiated pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium, and under any stress, I changed myself to squamous epithelium. This is what is happening. Sir, convert or replace. Replace. Okay, replace. Can use the word replace. Replace is the best word. Okay, it is replaced. Okay, not converted, replaced. Replaced is the best word describing it. Replaced. Okay, so another example I can give is your gut. Okay, in which there is glandular metaplasia. Glandular metaplasia, like if I take this distal esophagus. This is distal esophagus, and distal esophagus is in contact with what? In the gut, which is having that glandular epithelium. I have a glandular epithelium which has goblet cells in it, isn't it? And mucus is also being secreted here. I have goblet cells in it. Goblet cells in. Okay. So what will happen? What will happen? Once you have any sort of an acid reflux for a long time, there has been acid reflux. Okay. What will happen? The acid is going back to the esophagus. Now, esophagus is not knowing about this acid, but he says, okay, one time, two time, okay. But what will happen? Eventually, once you have more amount of acid injury will happen, because these cells are not made for acid. The cells of the esophagus is made up of what? Squamous epithelium. Is made up of squamous epithelium, isn't it? The distal esophagus is made up of squamous epithelium, and my stomach epithelium, that is made up of columnar goblet type. What will happen? Now he says I should become like a stomach. He says I should become like a stomach so that I can behave like this. Okay. Now what will happen? This will replace itself. I won't use here the word replace. I will use here the word convert. Now people were asking me, sir, convert or replace? Here I will use the word convert. So it will get converted to what? Glandular goblet cells. Here it will get converted to goblet cells. Okay. It will get converted to goblet cells and mucus producing cells. That means once I have goblet cells and mucus producing cells, I will be getting naturally protected to the acid. I will be getting naturally protected to the acid. Okay. This condition you call what? Where you have a transition of now the change of the cell type. This case we call what? Barrett's. Barrett's. Barrett's esophagus. Let me write in capital. Important question from surgery point of view and also from patho. Okay. Now, why we call this intestinal metaplasia? Why do we call this intestinal metaplasia? Intestinal metaplasia because your intestine has goblet cells, because they are responding to acid. Once the acidic content from the stomach is coming, you should have some defense so that your epithelium does not get destroyed. That is a normal physiology, normal homeostasis. So what will happen? Your cells that's why we say, we don't see, now terminology is wrong. People don't understand what do we mean by terminology. Now listen to my words, please. This will help you in neoplasia also. When I say intestinal metaplasia of distal esophagus, when I say intestinal metaplasia of distal esophagus, intestinal metaplasia of distal esophagus, it means, listen to my words, it means that distal esophagus got changed into the intestinal type of cells, and we know intestinal type is goblet cell. So this is the terminology you get wrong with. So distal esophagus is getting converted to what? Cells of the intestine which are found in the intestine. So it's intestinal metaplasia. That's why we call it intestinal metaplasia. And remember, that's a beautiful point, very nicely written in Robbins. He says this place is the highest risk. I'm not actually quoting those lines. I'm saying what I understand is, this place is the place which is having the highest chance, highest risk of developing adenocarcinoma. Adenocarcinoma, or distal adenocarcinoma will be appreciated. The higher risk of this place is going to have adenocarcinoma. Another thing, this is one end. I can think of another end also, this end. Let me take this end as an example. You know, there are also some metaplasia which is happening by bacterial infection. That is what? H. pylori. Helicobacter pylori infection. Helicobacter pylori infection causes chronic gastritis. So Helicobacter pylori. Helicobacter pylori is causing chronic gastritis. Chronic gastritis happening in the pylorus, and this is antrum. Pylorus and antrum. So this region is having PUD is mostly seen in this, isn't peptic ulcer disease is mostly seen that at these places. So Helicobacter pylori, what happens is it will infect these cells, and once it is there, it will start production. Immunologically reaction will happen, and cytokines will come there, and there will be more amount of inflammation, there will be more amount of gastritis, and will lead to the more production of goblet cells. There will be more production of goblet cells. You will have increased production of goblet cells, you will have increased production of Paneth cells, you will have increased production of goblet cells, you will have increased production of Paneth cells. And that's why we again say here intestinal metaplasia is happening. This was a glandular epithelium, now it has been changed to intestinal metaplasia. Why? Because it is having those cells present in the intestine. Okay, so and again, this place is the place which is having the highest risk of developing carcinoma. Either the carcinoma will happen in pylorus or it will happen in antrum. So carcinoma will happen, a gastric carcinoma. Are we able to understand, guys? So we have read, lungs. We said that chronic bronchitis. Okay, in the lungs, we said chronic bronchitis is happening because of all these irritants from that smoking, causing the irritation of this epithelium. And also remember one concept I forgot to tell you. This is the place which will be a nice Nike. Okay, this will be now a Nike for the NIDE, I can say, for the production of what? It will be the place where now cancer will happen, that is squamous cell carcinoma. So squamous cell carcinoma of bronchus will happen. I am talking in context of chronic bronchitis. We said once the smokers are smoking, their pseudostratified columnar epithelium in the bronchus is getting replaced by the squamous epithelium, isn't it? Isn't it, guys? So what will happen? They will cause what? Chronic bronchitis, and this place is now highly susceptible for formation of squamous cell carcinoma. So there will be squamous cell carcinoma of bronchus. There will be carcinoma of bronchus. Okay. Next, we have finished the lungs. We have finished the gut. Let us directly go to down in the female genital tract, that is cervix. So there are endocervical cells. Endocervical cells secrete mucus. They secrete mucus so that they can withstand the acidity of vagina. Acidity of vagina. So this happens. This causes what? Metaplasia. Squamous metaplasia. So if you give more acid to that place, endocervical cells will start undergoing squamous metaplasia. Endocervical cells will start undergoing metaplasia, and this metaplasia can change to dysplasia. I will be telling you about dysplasia also. Next, going into the bladder, I forgot to tell you a bladder carcinoma that is caused by an infection, that is schistosoma hematobium. Schistosoma hematobium. Schistosoma hematobium. Schistosoma hematobium is causing what? In the urinary bladder. I'll be teaching you in microbiology in detail. In urinary bladder, it changes. Your urinary bladder is made up of transitional epithelium so that it can expand and contract while the urine is getting filled. But this transitional epithelium, which are behaving like pillows, isn't it? They are contracting, expanding. They will get themselves changed into what? They will change themselves to squamous epithelium. That's why we call it squamous metaplasia. So squamous metaplasia happens under the schistosoma hematobium infection, which changes the urinary bladder epithelium, that is the transitional epithelium, into squamous epithelium. Squamous metaplasia is happening. And this is the place where you will be having squamous cell carcinoma of bladder. Squamous cell carcinoma of bladder. So these all can be, many examples are there, So if they even ask you a question, why this metaplasia is happening, say that, it's based on the genetic expression. Okay. Once you are giving them a stress, stem cells are changing themselves. Okay. So it's based on the genetic expression, on the basis of stress you are giving them, and also the factors which are causing them their change. For example, any hormone like estrogen, like irritants, cigarette smoking we read, or we have also a chemical that is retinoic acid. So retinoic acid vitamin can also be a factor for reducing various types of these conditions. Okay, let us end this discussion with a small topic that is not small actually. That's very much vast in the neoplasia. The next adaptation, that is dysplasia. Okay, dysplasia. Dysplasia means, please listen. Dysplasia means when I am having, how to say? Okay, let me say like this. Dysplasia means dis. Dis means disordered. This means disorder. Disorder means disorder cell growth. If your cell growth is not in order, you will give rise to carcinoma. Okay. If your cell growth is not in order, you will have carcinoma. Okay. Why this will happen? Now, first you had a disordered growth, and now you give any sort of stress. You give any sort of stress, that can be physical stress, chemical stress, or any chemical. What will happen? This will keep on going on towards the carcinoma stage. But if you remember the stress, if you remember not, if you remove the stress, if you remove the stress, what will happen? If you remove the stress, you can revert back the cell. Okay. So means what revert back? Means you will prevent this cell from carcinoma. You will prevent this cell from carcinoma. Okay. Like I told you in the endometrial hyperplasia. Okay. If you are not stopping the stress in endometrial hyperplasia, you will lead the person to endometrial carcinoma. Like I told you in the Barrett's esophagus, what will happen? If you are not removing the stress, this acid reflux, what will happen? This will proceed towards adenocarcinoma. Like if you have any sort of a viral infection, any human papilloma virus infection, and that is causing what? That caused squamous dysplasia in the cervix, isn't it? So if you are not removing that HPV, so I can give you examples like if you are not stopping the endometrial gland hyperplasia, if you are not treating the Barrett's esophagus, if you are not treating the HPV infection, be it any type, 16 or 18, that will cause what? That is actually causing what? Squamous dysplasia. And if you are not removing, so I can say these are all what factors, a risk factor for having dysplasia. Okay. Or you said right now, we are discussing the same thing, just talking about an irritant, the time you will be keeping that stress on this condition. So if you don't remove the stress, then things will start going towards carcinoma. Okay. So even in the third degree burns also, they will, can develop a dysplasia. Okay. So this is the concept about this dysplasia. Are we able to understand? We'll be discussing dysplasia in detail, in relation to neoplasias. Okay. So what will you see under the microscope? What will we see under the microscope? You will see, since I am telling you it's going towards carcinoma, so it should have increased mitosis. The cells will have increased mitosis. Okay. Or inside them you may see normal mitotic spindles, normal mitotic spindles, but their nuclear size will have increased nuclear size, and also chromatin. So these are the things you can remember about dysplasia. Okay, so remember only one thing. Let me write with a red pen. If you remove the irritant, if you remove the irritant, you can save this cell. That means it's a reversible. It's reversible. Are we able to understand this lecture? Fine. Okay, so we have finished in this till this video. From the last part we have finished what? This cell adaptations. Tomorrow we will be continuing or taking the next topic. Okay, so it's actually in the fundamentals of cell pathology which I have uploaded. I know some parts are not available, you know, they are due to some time lag due to busy schedule. I'm not able to upload them, but I will be uploading them soon. Okay, don't worry, keep learning, read the books, and thank you. God bless you. See you. Bye bye.